Throughout our time in Cuba, I always wondered how the Cuban government managed to still motivate people to perform work without external factors such as personal growth opportunities or money. We also discussed in this video why Cuban people didn't just pick up and leave and go to a place like the United States with their family.
Cuban Olympic theme or the Cuban football theme just came to my mind. Like whenever they go to the US to play the Gold Cup, they are professional athletes, right? They're supposed to be in a privileged position. Not a lot of people get to be part of the national team. Not a lot of people get to be part of the Olympic team. And what happens when Cuba goes to any competition, I'm not gonna say a percentage, but a lot of their athletes flee. They just abandon the competition and try to ask for asylum in the country where the fucking competition is being held. And it's not only athletes. Think about singers. Like, how come the most famous singers, Cuban singers, have to flee to Miami? Because they're not gonna make it here. I mean, you can still pursue an artistic career here. You're not gonna have the same opportunities that you would have if you were to flee to the US or to Mexico or to any other Latin country.
You know, we know that you have to motivate people through monetary value. Like, why do good doctors and why do good university professors still exist here? Like, why is their education still above average, and why is their medicine fields and
those numbers are tricky because yes, Cuba has some of the best, if not the best, medical doctors in the world, but most of them, they fucking flee the country.
We know people leave, of course, but I mean, they're still in a system where they can still produce the adequate amount of doctors and professors and keep an above average healthcare system and above average educational system. So there has to be some driving motivation.
A lot of them could be just very prideful for being Cuban. And even if they know of better opportunities, they want to make Cuba better in a way, you know? So that's something to think about as well.
You're coming at it from a more intrinsic point of view, so it's self-motivation. They're not really, I mean, they obviously understand the system that they're in, and they know that it's probably not going to change for a while, but it's like they're still intrinsically motivated to do good or to help increase the value of the service they're providing, the products they're providing, and add to their industry. So is that what you're saying? Like, it comes more from within them than motivated by external factors like money?
Definitely. I feel like there are some people as to where, like, I mean, let's just put it like this. Like, okay, they know they can make more money in the US, right? And they would be paid for what they have went through to become a doctor, correct? And of course, to us, that's how it's supposed to be, because we have a whole different world of circumstance. But for them, you know, they feel like I could be an example to other people, other doctors, right, that are coming up and they're looking up to me in a way, and I'm inspiring them to become a doctor or whatever they've chosen. They know they can get more, but it's just the fact that it's convenient and you're comfortable. And to uproot your life just to get something that may happen, people don't want to take that risk because of what they already have.
Sure.
So that's why obviously they have, you know, great doctors, great college professors, etc. I'm sure they know about the States and what they could do in the States, but just imagine like what would have to happen for them to go chase that alongside with their family that they may have, more than likely. It not only affects you, but it affects everyone in your life.
Exactly. No, I think
so. That's
huge.
Just like, that's a whole can of worms.
Family ties are huge, right? Country ties are huge.
Right.
But it's choosing that path, the more difficult path.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think most of the time they probably do have motivators or influencers, if you will.
You're forgetting the political. We're forgetting about two things. The political and the fact that we haven't been talking about the great silent majority of the population. Like, so far, we know we've been able to interact with, I would say, two kinds of Cubans, right? Either homeless people, hustlers, like streetwise people, and what would you call more privileged Cubans, like the guy who owns the Airbnb, right? So those are two extremes, right? And I feel that we haven't had the chance to actually get to know this big silent majority. When I say the big silent majority, I'm speaking about all these average Cubans who are not in touch with the external world, even though there's a lot of tourists here in Cuba. This big majority doesn't really come into contact with any kind of tourists. They live in their little bubble. Because they live in this little bubble, they are constantly bombarded with propaganda and on national TV, on radio, and they actually get to believe on the political ideas of the Cuban Revolution. Even now in 2019, they go to school, they reinforce those political ideas. That is why they have such a deep belief in their country. And what motivates them, I think, is the fact that they still believe in the revolution, and that it is their duty to bring back Cuba from this situation. Like, you know what I mean? I think it will be so awesome to talk to them, because I don't think that they will be that critical of the system, because they're like in the middle of everything. Like they're not extremely poor, and they are not wealthy, and they don't have contact with the external world, and they don't care about the external world. They still believe in the good old Cuban Revolution days.
So describe like the kind of industries that you're talking about.
Industries.
Like farmers, or
probably farmers, elementary school professors, tailors. I think that they really believe in this system, that however little they make, it's good enough for them, because they have this. Okay, in Marxism, there's this thing called class consciousness.
Right.
So they have
exactly.
class consciousness, and they know that they must do their part so that the whole collective works. So they just keep believing that, and they keep working their asses off, because that's what motivates them for one day to the collective, for one day to the working class, to actually achieve pure communism.
If Cuba ended communism and most of their socialist aspects tomorrow, and it turned into a capitalist democracy, what would the economic growth look like?
It will be fucking scary. You will be able to fucking see the capital influx of all these foreign companies and whatnot, right? But at the same time, all of the working class people, all of the unwanted people will just fucking disappear, starve on the streets. Are you familiar with what gentrification is? That's what would happen. Rent will exist, and the fucking rent prices will go through the fucking roof because of the influx of foreigners that are able to pay massive amounts of rent. And so regular Cubans will be like, I guess it will be the end for them. They will have to live on the fucking streets.
For me, it seems that Cuba is sitting on like an intellectual bubble, and it's just about to burst. Like there's this huge knowledge base here. I mean, like the knowledge base here is incredible. Like we've seen it because we've talked to people here. So they're sitting on this enormous intellectual bubble, and if it pops, don't you think the people will be able to prosper from that? And when I say pop, I mean that the socialist aspects disappear, the communism disappears. Or do you think that it would change too fast for people to actually adapt?
Yeah.
That's what I think will happen.
It would have to slowly leak into the country instead of just, and now you have to like scramble, you know what I mean?
Are there any restrictions that the U.S. has in place for people to come there, to the U.S., like Cubans?
No.
So Cubans can freely travel to the U.S. Why do the people that can go to the U.S., why don't they just stay?
If you do decide to go to the US, they keep hostages. That's why it's such a big deal when someone decides to fucking flee to the US or to any other country.
Right.
You need to make sure that your whole family and whoever you care about goes with you, because if they know that you left the country, they will fucking imprison them, because they will be considered traitors.